Hello.
Clap.
What?
Hi.
Hello. New Shape.
Hi.
New Shape. Podcast.
I'm Lady.
I'm Lila. And this is New Shape, where we talk
And this is New Shape.
and chat about the things.
Lila,
guys.
are we Kiki or Boba?
I feel like you're defo Kiki,
I'm defo Kiki.
and I'm
Okay.
I'm Boba. I'm probably Boba.
Okay, so this is why we work so well together.
Yeah, I guess so.
You see, to put it in boy band terms, I'm the electrifying.
Oh, like boy band archetypes.
Yeah, like boy band archetypes.
I never
You know those famous.
I don't. I never understood those because I really vehemently hated boy bands when I was growing up, but not in that typical because I mean at the time pre-transition whatever I wasn't ew girl stuff because I loved girl groups. I was all over that shit. But boy bands I just didn't. I don't understand.
Boy bands always felt really shallow to me. Like in high school, I'll never forget. Obviously, One Direction was really popular, but there was one girl that was like a vehement fan of Big Time Rush, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about that since. But if you listen to boy band lyrics, or at least at the time, all I have in my head is just they would always talk about oh, I want to date you. I want to date a girl. I want to date a pretty girl.
It's all
a girl
about
that's sensitive.
because I guess from my understanding is it's there's the harmless one and there's the bad boy, and it's basically just how do you want to be treated by a man? Whereas because girl groups are also appealing mainly to girls, it's different. There's
totally
still
different.
a sense of obviously crafted pop, shallow, whatever in that regard too, but it's in a different angle. I guess that's more about relating than it is about wishing.
Yeah. A lot of the girl groups that I remember totally fit the we've lived this experience. I'm just writing and singing a song about it. I every time I would think about if Harry Styles did date me, listening to those songs, I'd be like, ew, I don't want that.
I think that's because you're a lesbian.
Well, yeah, but I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah, but
this was I think this was probably when I was IDing as bi. You know, and
I just
wasn't into Harry Styles.
I had a small period in high school where I was down with One Direction. But it was
really
not I wasn't really ever into the them of it. They just they had a couple some of their later songs I thought were pretty catchy, and so it was I don't know, I'm a poptimist at heart, so it was I can fuck with a pop song. It was good.
Yeah.
Like this song. I don't even remember what they were called anymore, but
One Direction?
No, the songs.
Oh.
But
That's What Makes You Beautiful. That's
but that was earlier. I meant that I don't remember the name of the later stuff that I actually vibed with a little bit more.
I'm gonna be honest, as soon as that song is the beginning of One Direction to me, and also the death of One Direction.
Interesting.
Whenever I think of I mean I didn't pay attention to One Direction, so obviously I would think they're dead now. I mean, I guess that one guy is. And I just didn't really focus on. If my sister didn't focus on it, then it was out of my head.
Yeah.
She quickly became obsessed with Jeff Buckley. Afterwards.
Interesting pivot.
An interesting pivot for sure. I texted her the other day, my twin sister, and I was like, "Hey, Isa, are you still interested in Jeff Buckley?" And she was like, "Lady, I love him. He is my soulmate." I was like, "Thank God."
I've always that's always been a really
so
fascinating aspect of pop music and stardom is the he is my soulmate thing. But
Yeah.
this is not a One Direction podcast.
No, is it not? Oh my gosh, I remember all of them off the top of my head. Harry Styles, Bert Kreischer.
Stylish
Um,
segue. You know what does have pop in the title and that I watched over the last week is
What'd you watch?
a little show from 2000 called Boogie Pop Phantom.
Ooh,
which
long been on
I
the list.
fucking loved. I loved it.
Have you never seen it before?
No, it was my first time. It's been on my radar for quite some time now because mainly because the soundtrack, which has a bunch of acts that I really like, Rei Harakami, Sugar Plant, Set Us a Record, which is a spin-off project of a rock band I like a lot called Koltar of the Deepers. But I saw that soundtrack lineup and I was like, that's fucking crazy. I gotta watch this shit. And oh, it's so good. It's so
That's
good.
awesome.
It's like very much of that like late 2000s Denpa milieu, like the lanes and shit like that. I think that's the thing that it gets compared to most. But I wouldn't say it's really fixated on the exact same things as Lane. It just is of that same kind of turn of the millennium like sadness that was in a lot of like anime at the time. And oh, it's just so good. I keep saying that, but it's so fucking good. It plays with color in such an interesting way. It's like it's a 12 episode series, yeah. And 11 of those episodes are like primarily gray and like vignetted in a weird way. Like a lot of like, I watched like a Blu-ray rip of it and I expected somewhat for it to be a little bit like sharper or crisper, but it's like not. It's like so like purposefully muddy. And I actually learned because it's adapted from light novels, a light novel series.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know like how much it adapted. It doesn't at all. It's
a unique original.
Yeah, it's actually technically supposed to be placed in between the first two novels. And it tells an its own story. And that story structure is really cool because primarily each episode you're going to get a focus character. And there's all these mysterious happenings and demons and Shinigami like orbiting everything. And so you get this like viewpoint character, and each time you like watch a series of events, there's always so many like, who is that? Why'd that happen? What's the connection there? And it's so like mystifying about it and distant with like giving you direct answers. Oh yeah, it's super
stills and
it's
stuff.
so
It's gorgeous.
It's so cool. I actually did. It's out of print, but because of beautiful tax return, I did went out and order the omnibus of the first three novels because I was just like immediately enamored, and I was like, I need to like.
You were talking about like, oh, how come they only have the first, what is it, the first 6 volumes?
Yes, they have 2 omnibus editions of like 3 each, and the second one came out in like 2019, I want to say, and
oh wow,
Seven Seas hasn't
seen anything since.
hasn't done anything since. There's a fan project I saw that they've translated like 7 and 8, I believe. But like ultimately the goal with that translation process.
23?
Yeah, well I mean it's a light novel series.
Yeah, the only like light novel series that I've really read and know that there's that many books to is like Monogatari. It's just surprising.
That's commonplace. Like Dorada had like 16, Spice and Wolf had a ton. Shit like Magical Index had a ton. Stuff like Haruhi's technically still going. Yeah, but
Really?
similar to Haruhi, a lot of the times, like the first like 10 or so will come out in like pretty consistent quick succession, but as that kind of like it as a fixture in the light novel industry, if it's not one of those things that's like coming out all the fucking time, uh we'll often have like more spread out releases. Um
Right.
that like something you'll have to wait for kind of perpetually until it does end. With like Haruhi and with Boogie Pop is that eventually it's like, okay, volume 20 is out. It's been a bit. And you pick it up and you read it, whatever. Not in America though, or
Whoa.
English, because
Fuck you, I guess.
yeah, because I feel like light novels are in a really weird place in English right now. Where in that like there was this kind of like I feel like I remember well first Tokyo Pop. My first exposure with light novels was Tokyo Pop put out some of the dot hack
Yeah.
ones in the 2000s. And this
They're like
girl,
common
I was reading
fixtures
them, and
of
this
half price
girl who
books.
nicknamed me Peanut Butter in middle school, I don't know why, but she did.
What?
She stole my dot hack novel and then moved away like the next day. She
What
was
the
like, "Can I
fuck?
borrow this?" And I was like, I don't know. I was a dumb 12-year-old trying to make friends because I had just moved, uh, like districts a ton, and I was like, "Sure,
Yeah.
yeah, take it." And then she like fully moved. I was like, "Girl, it's like day 3 of school, and you moved.
Day
You
three of
nicknamed
school.
me Peanut Butter, took my light novel, and moved. You're crazy for
Do you
that."
think she still like looks at that book and thinks, "Ugh, that was Peanut Butter's. I should have given that back."
Maybe I
That's
don't know. To be
insane.
fair, I look at shit I've stolen and I'm like, oh. Although usually I'm not like I should give that back. I sorry if that's like immoral of me, but
I don't know. Are we just admitting crimes? I
okay.
don't know
Hello,
if
welcome
I've
to
ever
New Shape,
stolen
the crime
something.
podcast where we admit our crimes for
Does this
you.
technically make it a true crime podcast? Like we are talking about
Well, they
crimes.
are true, I guess.
That's true. I've never really stolen anything of someone else's. Just because I know they would feel bad if
I
it was missing.
I
I've
usually
definitely
didn't
like I've
when
shoplifted
it came to
before.
other people's stuff, I didn't steal, but I did bargain a lot because
Oh, traded?
my life as like a poor child, what resulted in me getting a lot of like hand me down shit from various sources for free that I
Mm-hmm.
like didn't care about. So like I would have a thing I didn't care about, and I would like meet someone who had a thing I did care about, and I was like, I am going to find the perfect way to concoct a trade, and it would work. And
Your ass played the Oregon Trail.
yeah, I mean, I got some of like my favorite, most like influential shit from that, like my fucking MTV Spider-Man, which
Oh my
episode 1 of this
god,
fucking
the
podcast, I'm already singing the praises of the weird CGI MTV Spider-Man cartoon series from 2003. My DVD collection came from trading like an old like WWE pay-per-view DVD release that I never watched one time because
Mhm.
I I like women's wrestling, but I don't care about dudes.
WWE just also just like sucks. So
It's true. It's also
completely
like even
understand.
even in women's wrestling, I don't watch WWE
Yeah.
because like frankly they're clout chasing weirdos and I don't care. Uh, anyway, I got that DVD and then like that DVD had like a trailer for Rintaro's Metropolis, and that's how I found out
Oh
about
my god.
Metropolis. And so I would just do like these weird trades, these weird specific trades that would like lead me into like the most influential things in my life.
That's so fucking funny. The only thing in my memory of a trade like that for me is a little Lego monito of Boba Fett,
Mm,
like the classic Boba Fett.
yeah.
Um, and that's it. That's all I can remember. That I still have it on my shelf. Um, but I don't remember trading anything like that. But it's really cool that that's how you found out about Metropolis.
Yeah, and that's
That's kind of
like one of my
crazy.
favorite movies of all time.
I mean, I've seen your Letterboxd. I know it is.
Yeah, it's true.
I've been trying to use Letterboxd a lot more.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
It's I've been writing things down, like what I watch and stuff, what I play, what I read, on
Like physically,
like, the
right?
Notes
Oh,
app,
Notes app.
physically, and the Notes app
Okay.
for years. And my friends were like, "Please, for the love of God, get a Letterboxd." So
I think
after
that's because you
years
watch
and
a lot of
years
interesting
being
shit.
told- Do I? The last thing I watched was Heart Eyes and Werewolves Within. I said that disdainfully. Werewolves Within made me laugh.
What is
I really
Werewolves
liked
Within?
that movie. So, Josh Rubin of Dropout fame, of College Humor fame, is a horror director now.
Okay.
And he partnered with IFC and Ubisoft, of all
Ubisoft?
things. Ubisoft. Werewolves Within is a video game adaptation movie. And it's for a game that no one's fucking played. And it's a movie that no one's fucking watched. So I watched Heart Eyes yesterday, which is his most recent film, and I fucking hated it. It was terrible. It's like a rom-com.
Getting ads for it on Hulu, and I was like,
yeah,
this looks like
I kept getting ads for
this
it.
looks like drivel.
It is. It totally is. And I thought, like, oh, maybe that's the bit, because it's Josh Rubin. He's a comedic guy. He's been like really consistently funny, and you know, he's been like a comedic influence for me. Blah blah blah. So I watched it hoping it would be funny, but it's this really, really, it's so boring to describe a movie like this, especially now, but it literally looked like an AI generated movie. So heavy emphasis on like oranges and blues. That does not make it anything look specifically like AI, but it's as if that was the only stylistic choice across that movie. Orange and blues, everything had a rim light. They're like everything was center framed rather, and all of the camera movements felt really, really boring or unmotivated. It was just sad. Not to mention there weren't any jokes that made me laugh. Actually, there was one, but it was a delivery that really made me laugh. A guy says, "Oh, you shot me," and so weirdly that it made me laugh. There was nothing else. But I was like, okay.
The face off I hate the police effect.
Exactly. And I thought, well, that movie wasn't good, but you know, maybe Werewolves Within will be the one.
Maybe Werewolves Within the Ubisoft movie will be the one.
The Ubisoft movie. I knew I'd been given a lot of positive buzz, and that has been like an albatross around my neck recently, where people give me positive buzz for a thing, and it ends up being something I totally hate. Yeah. So, like, in specific, the movie Blackberry, I really hated.
The phone one?
Even though everyone...
The phone one?
The phone one, yeah. It was like a phone biopic that was directed by the Nirvana the Band The Show guy. And I thought, oh, maybe this would be funny. And it wasn't. It sucked.
We're in, like, an interesting era of, like... People have really started, like, trying to... scratch the bottom of the barrel for like biopic ideas, because just like for a second it was just like Blackberry and Tetris, and it was just like I guess I'm just like,
I don't care.
I don't know. I don't find biopics that interesting. I think that's something that I've always thought has been a lot more compelling in like paperback form.
Yeah.
Whether that be a memoir or a biography, that's
obviously way more interesting.
Yeah, I think there's a lot like more detail there than kind of just like showing like a vignette of someone's life, which I guess can be interesting. A lot of movies are vignettes of people's lives, but in fiction. But I mean, there's good documentaries, I guess. But I guess just like the Hollywood biopic is just not something that draws to me particularly.
That's what Blackberry was sold to me as, like a reversal of the Hollywood biopic.
Gotcha.
Like a movie that really takes the piss out of such a thing, but its only joke was Glenn Howerton screaming "fuck" a lot, and Jay Baruchel's character being like horrifically racist. Is it Jay Baruchel? I don't remember. The guy from How to Train Your Dragon. That's Hiccup, the main guy.
That is not a fact I carry in my head.
You see, this is our two play styles in Cine 2 Nerdle are so different because I go
Juniper Tree
like,
Death Box. I love trapping people in the Juniper Tree Death Box. The Bjork film, the 1990 Icelandic Bjork film. Juniper Tree.
You have way more things like that. I wish I had more crazy connects, but unfortunately, I just like. Oh man, you know it'd be great if I could somehow trap somebody in the G Savior Death Box.
It's the problem is that it's so hard to get to anime. Or like,
well, G Savior is a live action movie.
Oh,
G Savior is a Canadian live action movie. That is the last thing in the Gundam timeline.
Oh, okay. I had no idea this whole time
film.
that G Savior was live action.
Yeah, that's because no one talks about G Savior except
seen the name.
As like a punchline to a joke. Yeah, Savior with a U.
Yeah.
No one talks about it, and there was a game too.
Really?
Yeah, there was a game. It was like a.
I gotta get more
like
into the pits of Gundam, because like as much as I'm like a like.
Oh man.
I love it obscure like OVAs and shit. For Gundam, it's like I've seen 79, I've seen Zeta, I've seen Wing, you know, all that shit. I have not seen Witch from Mercury. I will.
It's okay.
I will watch it eventually.
I'm someone like Gundam is super important to me. So I've been in the shit in regards to Gundam. Like I've seen the main stuff of UC, but I've also seen stuff like Gundam Omega, which is
I've never heard
like
of that.
An ONA. They were like video links given with specific toys and model kits. They're these really weird 3D CG animated things. Yeah, super cool.
Neat. I used to love when like little toys would have like a multimedia thing.
Dot Hack has like a lot of those.
Ooh, Dot Hack.
Dot Hack has so many. So does Xenoblade actually, which I think is cool. I'm a big fan of multimedia projects like that.
Yeah.
So like Bionicle was really instrumental to me as a kid, just because you know obviously with imaginative play, like you make your own story. Like a kid builds their own little freakazoid and they play whatever they want to play. But Bionicle having and promising this like story beyond the toys was really like instrumental to me to really respect crazy multimedia projects.
As someone
like Yoko
who
Taro
didn't
stuff.
really like have access to like a lot of like those like contemporary toys, I loved renting Bionicle 3 Web of Shadows.
Oh yeah. Oh man. That movie I think is what made me there's this scene where Vakama is talking to Rudaka and he says like what's happening to me, and I think that's the exact moment I fell in love with like horrific body transformation as like a thing.
Yeah, I was
and you can tell by the way I remembered the characters' names of the exact scene.
I don't. I just remember they were trapped in those little cocoons and I was like, oh shit, this fucking whips. And then they were like different.
Yeah. It fucking owns. I love the second one, the one about Metro.
I've actually never seen that.
Because I think that it's awesome. Well, okay, you're hearing that from me, and it's really hard for me to. Objectivism for me is not a thing that exists. So to me, that movie fucking owns, and I think it really works on its own. And you don't really need to know Bionicle lore. But I also just love the Metro Nui setting. Like I'm a big fan of big city stuff, and I always thought that the way I actually on my iPad, the thing that I draw on is a map of Metro Nui.
Oh, that's cute.
They always had these crazy renders, almost like
I love the renders.
Pre-rendered backgrounds. Yeah, they're so pre-rendered backgrounds from like Final Fantasy VII is what they remind me of, and they're really cool. God, yeah. So Bionicle is really what set me what was probably my thing that ended up opening up the door in regards to like things that I'll later love. It didn't directly introduce me to movies that I love, but the
Yeah.
ideas behind it were.
It was always really fascinating to me. I existed at a bit of a distance from Bionicles, but I was always like appealed by the idea of it.
Mm-hmm. Shame that that fourth movie sucked ass.
Yeah, I never saw it. I'm not sure what the timeline is, but I remember watching the Bionicle 3, and it always felt like the ending was teasing something.
Yeah. Well, the ending that was teasing never came.
Yeah.
Instead, they focused on an entire
Yeah, because they,
different
they
thing.
shifted the whole thing, and then they went Hero Factory mode.
They did go Hero
And I
Factory
remember
mode,
I
which
I was going through some old shit, and I found some like Hero Factory stuff, and I was like, these designs are awful.
yeah,
They're bad.
yeah,
They're not
they're
good.
not really good. The thing, Hero Factory is kind of heartbreaking to me, just because as much as people will probably hate me for saying this, Bionicle kind of needed to die. Um,
Well, I
Not
think
only were sales going,
there's only so much you
what?
can. I think that as
Yeah,
much as it creates like this aching feeling, I think for a lot of like these like limited imprints is that they should end at a certain point, because then they become
mhm.
these like really cool crystallized things.
The legends are more important. I feel
And then
like,
when they come
and
back, it's just
actually,
like, oh.
yeah, there's a little bit of that in, and I saw the TV Glow that I appreciated, that like that moment of the thing that shaped you, that formed you, it coming back is just sort of a distraction,
Yeah.
like but when the Hero Factory came out, I think the biggest disappointment for me, as someone that really likes toys, fun fact, I really love toys, uh those toys are really uninteresting,
Mhm.
and the stories are super simplistic. That's fine, because at the end of the
It's for
day,
children,
the
and a lot of
kid that
it's
yeah, the kid that's playing
children can fill in the
is
gaps themselves.
exactly. um it's just that those they didn't spark imagination at all. They were really simplistic builds, and they didn't challenge, like
Mhm.
they didn't challenge any sort of spatial reasoning or tactile sensibilities. They were really kind of flat. They fell flat really, really hard. And I think that's the biggest insult with Hero Factory to me. Like I don't blame them for going in that direction. Blame the Lego group and all of its designers for going in that
Uh-huh.
direction. It's just that it was profoundly disrespectful to children, I
Yeah,
feel.
that's my beef with a lot of children's media, is just like how disrespectful they are to children's intelligence and
Mhm.
all that shit.
I really, I uh, raising my raising my niece, like watching over her from time to time. She would be, what my stepsister would tell me is just like put on her show,
Mhm.
and Bubble Guppies, whatever, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. Maybe I'm just a jaded adult, but at the time, all I could think is like, how is how is this enriching a child?
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of the time it's like you said, just put something on and go. It's like that's how like these like iPad babies are formed. Is that they're just like,
Hmm.
whatever, here's like something to stimulate you. And like
I
that's
was at
it. It's like, I don't know, when I was a kid, I mean, to be fair, I had a very, very unconventional childhood. Uh
mhm.
but I was just always given things that would lead to like curiosity, or rather, a lot of what I had was because I was like, if I was curious about something, I was allowed to contend with it, even if it was out of my grasp, in terms of like how much I was able to actually properly understand it and like process it. I was allowed to
Mhm.
be given like these things that would like draw my curiosity and help me explore. even if they were a little bit aged out from me, but like that's how I got into comic books. That's how I got a lot of the little weird DVDs I owned, and like why I was allowed to watch Alien and why I was allowed to watch The Matrix was because I was like drawn to like these images, and like even if the adults around me knew that I wouldn't be able to like fully
Fully
be able to
understand.
appreciate what it was, I think they still encouraged me to like, okay, you're curious about this. Here it is. What can you as a 4-year old get out of this? And
Yeah.
even if at the time it was pretty images, it eventually, that behavior I like had, like I struggled to read for a really long time. I like refused to read. But because of that behavior, I like my reading level skyrocketed like immediately
Hmm.
because I was like my my curiosity was encouraged basically.
You have to be able to spark curiosity. Like the imagination is not a fluke. Like being able to play and reckon with the world is such an important skill that I feel not a lot of people really develop, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And
You like have to actually
it's
like, you can't just like take your child and like sit them in front of something. You have to like actually like,
no,
where are their eyes wandering and why? And you have to
exactly.
interrogate that. And sometimes that is
It
just like handing them a thing that maybe they don't understand, but they want to understand is the point.
Exactly. I think that a lot of like if going back to toys, like a lot of toys for early age children do sort of recognize that they need to be intuitive and also inspire that kind of like imagination. So there'll be a lot of doohickeys and whatsits. But I also find that some of the most effective learning tools for that thing are just what I describe as adult tools.
Mm-hmm.
I remember something that was really formative to me was being handed a wine cork
Mm.
opener. So it had like a bottle cap opener at the top and its arms folded up and it was a corkscrew at the bottom. And just playing with that tactile sensation was just like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Like and I really love that sort of thing. There's a lot of doohickeys and whatsits and widgets that I think kids should be exposed to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they also need to be like you have to trust them, and I feel
Yeah.
like a lot of the iPad baby ism is just through a lack of trust, either in hi, welcome to New Shape the Parenting Podcast, where
For moms, by moms.
kid tested, mother approved. Um, I just think being able to respect that children are gonna be into your thing, and like you have to respect their intelligence, whether it be like kids are a lot smarter or maybe they're just figuring stuff out.
Yeah.
um I think that's really 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 important to just like existing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree entirely.
So in a way, I've been playing a lot of Sonic.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't necessarily call Sonic the Hedgehog a thinking man series. It doesn't have to be. But I do appreciate that a lot of I'm playing Adventure at the
Yeah.
moment, for example. A lot of that game will give you answers if you seek them, but it inspires players to figure stuff out on themselves.
Yeah.
So playing Big the Cat's levels, for example, like it doesn't tell you there's not a big radar that says Froggy is right here.
Uh-huh.
It's you kind of all right, there's a space. What buttons do I have available to me? I mean, you can read the instructions, which I did. But being able to like intuit things and figure stuff out, like what's the sweet spot to get a fish, how much do I have to row? It's really fun to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I also like figuring stuff out on myself and then like, oh, that's Mr. Know-It-All. What does Mr. Know-It-All have to say? And he gives me like whatever I just learned by myself. Like I think that's really cute. But what I think I appreciate immediately more about Sonic Adventure than say like, you know, Sonic Forces, the only other Sonic game that I played, is that it puts a lot more trust in the player to like be in a space
Yeah.
and learn how to navigate
Like
through
when I
it.
was a kid with a hand-me-down Dreamcast, I spent a lot of time in adventure just like roaming.
Being, yeah, it's a good roaming game. Like those adventure fields are really lovely.
And
Uh,
also something you said is at the beginning is that Sonic is not a thinking man's game, but I think something with that is that there's occasionally a difficulty or at least a high skill ceiling that like where they open the
yeah,
roof up where it's like I think a huge thing about development and these like curios of interest is like when you get stuck and that's like a notable thing and you think about
mhm,
that like 20 years later and you're like, oh, I'm doing that thing, I finally figured it out.
yeah.
I figured out how to fuck with Sonic's physics or to do this or to do that.
I got that feeling playing Astrobot actually.
Mm.
Because I recently like completed
Mm-hmm.
Astrobot and I really loved it. But when I was stuck on that last challenge level, um I found that the way to reckon around it was not to follow the path that was laid before me, but it was to find my own. So I ended up doing a lot of like speedrunner skips on accident, just trying to get to the end of that level.
Mm.
Um and like noticing small things like oh, this enemy's projectile does not reach this point because it's being blocked by a platform. Like all of these little elements, as calculated as they may be, like they are in Astrobot, or as uncalculated as they seem, like in Sonic Adventure, um, still kind of help me reckon with just the the tactility of being in
Uh-huh.
a game. Um, so like one of the things with Sonic that I've known and playing other Sonic games, like Sonic Mania in particular, like yeah, there is a critical path, I'm sure, but the path that you choose is based on your skill level and your ability.
Mm-hmm.
And I found, after dying a lot of times in Stardust Speedway, I was like, okay, I can get to this point, and I can do like an extra long jump here. Like, it's intuitive and it's cool to get to that
Yeah.
moment of like seeing the line for yourself, seeing that thread that you can cut.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that's like a really important sensation that I also feel like not a lot of games or things in general really inspire. Um, or at least maybe they, well, I mean, if you're like playing Horizon Zero Dawn, there's not really that moment because Aloy would just be like, I can use this to do that.
Yeah.
You know,
It
that's
that's a whole argument that's been the yellow paint or whatever.
yellow paint isn't the problem. What the problem is for me is yellow paint is a necessity, I would say, because as games have gotten more detailed and people go higher and higher into like meat fuckers HD super duper graphics, it becomes really difficult for players to discern what is and isn't
Uh-huh.
interactable and what is or what should and shouldn't be
So
interacted
would you
with.
say the issue is more
It's
showing
an art
showing
direction issue.
naturally versus like telling you?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
Um, like being able to show naturally is obviously what you want to strive for. Show, don't
Uh-huh.
tell. But I think a big problem, and I've been thinking about this in regards to the Resident Evil 4 remakes, a whole conversation around yellow paint.
Uh-huh.
The biggest difficulty for me to reckon around it is as soon as you remove that yellow paint, you don't know where to go.
Mm.
It's an art direction. It begins with art direction. It begins with presentation. Part of the fun of playing the original Resident Evil 4 for me is, even though I might get lost, I still always kind of knew where to go, even without the map,
Mm-hmm.
because things funnel you in this specific way, and you get to reckoning really quickly what is and isn't interactable. And the fun secret is most everything is interactable, and it's cool. But when I was watching people play through like Resident Evil 4 remake and complaining about the yellow paint, I realized like none of these things really feel like they should be interactable.
Uh Yeah.
Because everything is so
Yeah.
detailed. There's not
I
that
guess
moment of
people I think people have gotten a little bit of a hubris in regards to
mhm,
like modern AAA video game design where it has to be the everything game all the time,
yeah.
no matter what
Oh
it
my
is.
gosh.
And a lot of things are like punished online
Hmm.
or by whoever for having like a very specific like narrow vision. Like narrowness is
Yeah.
not encouraged because it's not for everybody, which means it doesn't sell extremely well, which means we don't get back the millions of dollars we put into it.
Hmm.
And that's a real um creates way more problems than it does any, at least in terms of like,
Answers.
I don't want to say good art, but I mean in terms of like art that has purpose, and that purpose
Hmm.
isn't just make money. I mean,
Make money.
ultimately the purpose of every product is to maybe hopefully at least recoup, um except for like the real dirt indie stuff where they're just doing it for
Hmm.
doing it. But oh my god, I just lost my train of thought. But basically I think this desire for games to be everything, to do everything, to have everything, everything is touchable, and everything is, you can talk to the walls and you can talk to the floor and you talk to the ceiling, all this shit just like kind
Yeah.
of spirals endlessly out of control. And I think I think obviously by the way the game industry is operating right now and the way things are heading, that's going to crash. And I think
Oh, for
people
sure.
are just going to have to contend with the fact that it just can't be the everything game all the time. And that
It can't
I
be the
think,
everything game, and why should it be?
yeah, and I think a lot of people are starting to realize that they are craving specific visions.
Hmm. Like playing. Oh man, um, a game that does not use yellow paint and it inspires a sort of tactility, and I still know where to go. That I recently beat. Even Death Stranding, this massive multi-million-dollar budgeted game,
Mm-hmm.
still. In a way, it's an everything game, but it still is a singular vision because what it chooses to focus on is so specific.
Yeah.
No one's criticizing Death Stranding for not having like, well, I mean it does, but a big complaint that I see is, oh, the water physics in this 20-year-old game are better than Ghost Recon Wildlands or something like
Is
that.
that a
Something
real game?
ridiculous. Yes, it is.
I've never heard of that.
Well, it's a Ghost Recon game,
Okay.
so that's
Is
just not
that
your
is that a Tom
wheelhouse, and it's not
Clancy?
mine
Is Ghost Recon
either.
a Tom Clancy?
I think it's a Tom Clancy. It's a Ubisoft thing. You
Ain't that
know,
Tom
yeah,
Clancy?
it's probably Tom
I
Clancy.
feel like it's
Yeah,
Tom Clancy.
yeah. Tom Clancy, yeah, he developed it himself
Ain't he dead?
from the grave.
I think he's dead.
Yeah, he's totally dead. He's been dead for like a while.
Okay.
Um, but people will criticize stuff like that, something that's so minute and hardly a part of an experience. So I really appreciated while Death Stranding has this extreme appearance, this like hyper HD appearance, it still focuses on giving players this intuitive tool.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, the controller as analog for yourself. Like you know how to hold a backpack,
Uh-huh.
more or less. So being able to press the triggers, the trigger keys, and like being able to see Sam like hold on to the straps of the bag, like these things really make sense in a way. So I appreciate that, Death Stranding trusted me to do my own thing.
Uh-huh.
I was playing it recently with a friend of ours, Richie, and something that he would state a lot while watching me play is, dude, the path that you were taking is not the one that I took, and it's awesome like
Yeah.
that. Um,
I love that.
and I think that's cool
Because it's all
like
about
there,
that.
there
That's very much it's a journey game.
yeah, for sure. It's a journey game, but it's also a speed game near the end, which I kind of like. That feeling of when you have the time sensitive missions. All right, asshole, you've explored this world. What's the fastest route around it? That's a fun puzzle for me to decide because I set the parameters. You know, I can lay down bridges. I can use a player's bridge, and I think that ever shifting world is such a fascinating like gameplay system that I really came to become just obsessed with it on my replay.
Yeah, something I like about it is that I think when a lot of people are making really vast open worlds in games, a common complaint is that uh, they're wide but not dense. And what Death Stranding does is it gives you a pretty large amount of blank canvas to just say, then put something in there yourself.
Yeah. Put something in there yourself and also help another player.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting like hook, I think. Being able to help another player is really nice to me. There's this great moment. It's are we allowed to talk spoilers? It's a spoiler for Death Stranding. I'll tell you that.
Okay.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. If you haven't played Death Stranding,
I've never.
What the fuck are you doing?
I've never thought about that because I don't personally myself ever think about spoilers, but I guess it's good to warn somebody.
It's probably good to warn
host
somebody.
Etiquette? Is that host etiquette?
I think so.
Anyway, say your thing.
Anyway, at the end of the game, where the last mission you receive is to dispose of Lou. No player objects are spawned in, but the only ones that are left. Sorry, no player objects that are from other players are spawned in, but story characters as objects are. And something that I noticed immediately is that the path that I took in particular was laid down by the first person you meet in that game.
Oh, yeah.
Victor Frank or Igor. Yeah. Like
that
ladder, that rope. And that really touched me because it just put its themes were laid bare. Like the path that you walk wasn't just set by you alone.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lesson that a player has to learn just as much as Sam ported bridges.
To break immersion, I was watching her do this, and okay, so she was like sobbing and crying, and she like got to the ladder and she like was just sitting there crying, and then she immediately started like slamming the like button insanely fast, which I thought was hilarious.
I oh my gosh. So okay, before this, so I was sobbing, I was crying. It was 4 a.m.
It was 4 a.m.
Chris, if you're listening to this, I'm really sorry I was up that late. It was 4 a.m. and I couldn't see anything through my tears because the game had moved me so prodigiously. I slipped. My character slipped, hit the ground, face first, planted. I started laughing, then sobbing more, and then I saw the ladder. And I had this moment while slamming the like button, like it reminded me of the end of Metal Gear Solid 4 where David like salutes the big boss's grave. I was like, oh, thank you, Igor. You got me here, man.
Damn.
If without you, I wouldn't be here.
Hideo Kojima is the first person to add gravitas to the concept of slamming that like button, hitting subscribe, and ringing that bell so that you can get notice every time I put out a video.
So true. And because I had done so much in that game, the amount of time I had to like something was really, really extended, and I didn't want to be mean and just leave a like. So I kept slamming that button, and it got to like 600 likes. And I guess I didn't consider it from your view, but I must have looked fucking crazy.
It was certainly something.
It was, oh man, what a game.
Yeah, I love that
being
game.
able to, but oh my god, when I played it before, I played it at the start of my Butch and I's relationship. And it was like winter break. And I only played, and they weren't there. They were back home with their parents. Mm-hmm. And I was left alone in the apartment. with our then new cat. So
Momo.
with a kitten, as the worst snowstorm that had ever hit Texas hit, I was in a room with a warm light just playing Death Stranding, and it clicked, but only enough for me to want to get into the story. And its systems didn't interest me or fascinate me, like the kind of person that I was then. Just it was superficially connected, I suppose. So this replay through of Death Stranding really got me to, really immerse myself, not just in the game and its world, but with specifically its themes of like, what kind of connection am I building here? I spent a lot of time this playthrough building roads. I built a lot of roads. I built a lot of like bridges, a lot of chargers, but that's because I used the bike the most. And that thing only has like a pea-sized battery. And it was really, really fun for me to do that. And being able to make sure that everyone's connection rate was the highest it could possibly be also made me realize, while reading all these emails, that the connections that Sam, or the part of these people's lives that Sam has, that the player has, aren't superficial. Like, time moves on in a really interesting way in Death Stranding, and there are these mini sub-stories that happen. So it was really funny to me, helping out the chiral artist and the junk dealer, like, reunite, and then they tell me they divorced, and then knowing that they can reconcile with each other and remarry. Like, that's a really interesting little element to it, that you play this folky hero kind of character. So Death Stranding really, really struck a chord with me, just because of the tactility of that connection. I really like that word, tactility. I really value
I
that
think you said it like 5 times in this episode already.
5 times in this episode, and
forevermore
you hear of me. Oh man. But I love it.
Yeah, something
I really, really do.
Yeah, I like that Death Stranding doesn't have that, like, it doesn't shy away from the fact that it is hard to connect, and connecting often does lead to you being hurt and developing fears and complexes and what have you. But regardless, you should do it anyway.
That's why it's super cool to me that the question that Death Stranding 2 is asking is, should we have connected?
Yeah, I'm excited to see how that
What does that mean?
I'm excited to see how that pans out.
I'm so excited.
Although I do not own a PlayStation 5.
I do. It's if I'm being honest, you're probably in the right to not have a PlayStation 5. It's kind of been like a worthless purchase. I still use it, obviously. And thank you, Chris, for going splitsies with me on that PS5. It's just, there's not any games for that damn system.
Yeah.
Like, everything that I've played is just a PS4 game.
Yeah.
In a way, I'm really glad that the PlayStation 5 is pointless, just because people who still have a PS4 can still play most of these games. But obviously you're missing out on like the 2 games that it has, which is Astrobot and Death Stranding 2.
Yeah.
But
I also played a game that has a connection mechanic. A very different one. But over the last week,
beautiful segue, by the way.
Thank you. If I've shown nothing, is that I am a lovely segue princess who can do no wrong.
It's so true.
Anyway, man. I've been playing Crisis Core. Well, not playing. I finished it. Crisis Core. Replaying Crisis Core. Final Fantasy VII for the PlayStation Portable.
Not the remake.
Not the remake.
PlayStation Portable.
Because I love the way PSP 3D models upscale. So I would never play a PSP remaster because I just love PSP games too much.
I'm so sad that your PSP is like busted.
Oh yeah, I found it in the closet and the battery. Thankfully, I've heard about like way worse battery explosions. Mine was thankfully contained and just misshapen and did not fit the console anymore. It like expanded. But yeah, I would have to get a replacement one. But I like playing emulated PSP anyway. Crisis Core, played it as a teenager, loved it, adored it. um and since then, uh
Final Fantasy VII kind of exploded since
I mean, it's
then.
always been really popular. That's why the compilation exists in
Well,
the first
in the
place.
first
But I
place.
think a lot has been added to the fold, and also I think been a lot of like evolving conversation about that initial compilation. Like,
Hmm.
a lot of people have turned positive on Dirge. A lot of people have turned negative on Advent Children and Crisis Core.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah,
Number one, I've always seen negativity for Advent Children, but that small moment right before Rebirth, that small, tiny moment where people loved and appreciated Advent Children,
yeah.
finally.
I still love it, but I mean,
I still love
we
that
both
movie.
own physical copies of The Spirits Within. We're a
Yeah.
very specific demographic here.
Kind of
But
person.
yeah, I was really curious to see how revisiting Crisis Core would go. And TLDR, I still love it. It's still great. Um,
Kind of fits into the themes of that game to come back to it after so long, no?
I guess.
I
How
feel like a
so?
lot
Go
of that
on.
game has this sort of feeling of I played it recently for the first time last year before I played Rebirth.
Mhm.
And a lot of that game to me sort of felt like you can't come home, and the home that you knew was maybe not in your view, but looking back on it was kind of broken or built on this shoddy foundation. Um, like Zach sort of becoming comfortable with the idea of being a soldier and getting deeper and deeper into the Shinra ranks
Mhm.
and really having to reckon with why would Angeal, betray Shinra. I really liked that sort of feeling, especially exploring places like Benora and
Mhm.
seeing the history laid bare of Genesis and Angeal and Sephiroth and stuff. Um, like the home that every one of these characters, those four characters, are lived in is has always been a sort of lie,
Yeah.
and that's I think that it handles it really, I think gracefully in a
Mhm.
way. Like a lot of the game is built on a lot of the game for me in particular was built on this confusion of when is this happening, what is going on. But being able to recenter myself with stuff like the emails and seeing
I
the world go on.
I
I love those emails.
love the way you interact with the world in that game. Just like,
Oh yeah.
especially in the first couple of hours, when you're just like, when you're getting your like feelers out and you're seeing what the deal is. You probably already
Your
know who Zakthar
proboscis.
is, you know who Sephiroth is, but like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of it is foreign or stuff that's been alluded to. And just being able to walk around Midgar and talk to people who are fully in the Shinra shit. Like, they're
Yeah.
propagandizing to you, telling you all this shit, and then going across the street talking to another person who is like, I don't want to talk to soldiers. Soldiers are awful. They're arms of the machine. I hate it. And then going down the street and talking to people who are like developing parasocial relationships with war criminals, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just
Oh.
like this, you get such a vast view of like everything. And what I love about it is that it doesn't just like tell you how to feel necessarily about it. Um
No.
because you'll just be going on to the next plot mission and you'll get an email that is total fucking bullshit from the Shinra CEO. And Zach doesn't go, huh, I was there. That didn't happen. That's not right. You're just like ambiently being given this information, ambiently giving these lies when you know the truth, and there's nothing
Mm-hmm.
you can do about it.
I think that in a way, talking to those people, being able to finally interact with the post Advent Children version of Final Fantasy VII in like in a playable space. Granted, Crisis Core and Advent Children came out around the same time, so like it wasn't too long of a wait. But I think that the interactions that you have really, they add so much color to Final Fantasy VII, because I feel like Final Fantasy VII, at least its translation, really plays on a lot of absolutes. And there's not a lot of like gray area. So Zack Fair being literally gray at the end, in his black soldier outfit, just in between these worlds is such a fun space to explore.
Yeah.
Just because, like, Zack coming to terms with both himself and Gilles and his place in all of this is such a cool, like, cumulative moment.
I love what it has to say about heroism and just like the passing of the torch, and how like Zack is this like weird middle child in between the legacy that would later become Cloud and was in Gilles. And out of the three of them, Zack is the most like archetypal shonen hero. Like he's the guy who's gonna do it, and he still doesn't. In a way, he does by passing himself on to Cloud, but Cloud is a lot more of a complicated character, and
in a way, like, I think that's what makes Zack so interesting and fun for me. Like, Sephiroth is probably the straightest he's ever been with anyone in that game. Like, he kind of is upfront,
yeah,
even though he himself is coming to terms with himself.
I found Sephiroth in that game to be fascinating, because he, like, I think from what you know about him, you would think that, oh, he's gonna hate Zack. But the thing is that he actually gels on with Zack really easily, because I think Sephiroth sees how much, I think he respects Angeal a lot, because in the trio of Angeal, Sephiroth, and Genesis, Angeal was kind of this balancing effect. Genesis and Sephiroth were both at this kind of this level of extremity. Very strong
personalities.
Because I mean, you get that fight where they're like fully in the training session, and they're like, and Genesis is just like, no, I'm gonna fully fucking kill Sephiroth right now, and Angeal has to like step in. And I think Sephiroth recognizes how much weight Angeal's actions and how his like body language about Zack reflects his like respect and care for Zack. And I think that's something that Sephiroth like understands. And so I
there's this line
go on
that I love in the game. It's very, very early on. You're in Wutai, and Gilles, it's like the first time you hear Angeal talk, and he says, I care about you a little bit more than the sword, just a little bit. And I think that that's such a brilliant little, like, Angeal really is the thing to make it all work, I feel.
Yeah.
Like, all of these disparate parts. Like, Angeal is the balancing act, but I think, in a way, Zack is, like, the weird middle child. And Sephiroth, I think, also recognizes a lot of himself in Zack. Like, there's that moment where Zack is telling Sephiroth, you know, we can go back, we can complete the mission, and Sephiroth's like, no, I have more I need to learn. And Zack just follows along. And I think that game has that sort of camaraderie with your fellow soldier in a deeper sense that I really, really enjoy.
Yeah.
I just, that game portraying Zack as like the most honest part of Final Fantasy VII as a whole is really cool to me. Like, obviously you get so little of Zack in Final Fantasy VII proper. And in a way you don't, because Cloud has this interject of Zack, and the way that it manifests in Cloud as being this kind of like sharp and negative, dismissive kind of character that really speaks to kind of a wonder in me that Zack is portrayed so like, all right, let's do it kind of thing in Crisis Core.
Yeah, I
Like
guess that's
he is.
because you're seeing a version of Zack that is like tainted by Cloud's guilt.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know, I love that Zack being so honest and being, everyone will be quick to call him a himbo, but what I think they mean is he's very earnest.
Yeah,
Um,
the whole story is feels very earnest to me. I think a lot of the critiques of the compilation broadly don't really settle in the same way in my brain that they do for a lot
no,
of other people, just because I think a lot of the works there, especially Crisis Core, are just so like earnest and heartfelt. Like Crisis Core is like the archetypical thing I think of when I think of like a story that is just like pure like emotional bursting at the seams kind of
I think a lot
story.
of people, when they criticize the compilation, what they criticize is the journey from point A to point B, specifically plot. It's just plot. It doesn't make sense that blah blah blah. And when I think a lot of those games, I guess the way that Nomura writes in specific is emotions first, like obfuscating emotion through these kind of big ideas. But at the end of the day, the most resonant thing for me is gonna be like what Zack felt across that entire game.
Mm.
It's not important to me to learn like every specific detail of a timeline of Final Fantasy VII. The fact that it's simply playing through that legend,
Mm-hmm.
that's more interesting to me as
And
like a
I do
feeling.
think
It's a
worth
mood
noting because I
piece.
think it gets said a lot. I think a lot of the blame is placed solely on Nomura when
Yeah.
people are critiquing
Uh
it, and I
huh.
will say that like a lot of the compilation he did not write. I think
No, it was
something
Hold on.
that is worth saying is that a lot of the compilation is born of a shared ethos that isn't solely on Nomura's shoulders, but also the shoulders of everyone he works with and the other writers and everybody involved.
There's a lot of that portrayed in the making of documentary that was produced for Advent Children,
Uh-huh.
um, that I really enjoy. But I think blaming Nomura, like Nomura, unfortunately, is a punching bag, and I think that's really
Well, yeah,
unfair. What I
everybody, when
don't,
it comes to mass critique or
they need
dogpiling,
someone to
frankly, because
blame.
a lot of people who are saying stuff aren't really critiquing stuff. They're just very angrily kind of going, "This is not to my tastes," and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people who kind of like really like to pile on like that, like to choose a boogeyman, so to speak.
No, for sure. That's what's so disappointing to me. Um, just because I feel like when you get lost in the muck and the mire of you hook on the one specific thing, like oh the plot of Final Fantasy VII doesn't make any sense,
Mm-hmm.
then you're never going to find any sort of pleasure in anything that comes out afterwards, simply because uh you're never gonna find what you really wanted.
Yeah,
And I say this as someone who does have some manner of criticism, at least towards Rebirth, like of like a compilation element. But I think that the compilation kind of begs you to focus on these feelings.
yeah, and I think that's
Um,
why it resonates with me so much because I think in regards to what I personally am trying to get from art is like emotions and like atmosphere first and
for
like
sure.
sense like maybe fourth or fifth.
Yeah, like we both love Final Fantasy VII Remake, which
Yeah,
is widely criticized for being so out there and crazy. Um, like especially near the end. But I
I mean
think
I
a
love
lot of
Dirge of
that
Cerberus,
game,
so
that was what I was about to get into. Like it's so cool to me that the compilation before remake is specifically about Final Fantasy VII's past and future, and there's no real connection in between. It's just the feelings of what was felt then and what's felt, and using two opposites, of Zach and Vincent, I think is awesome. Just because, like, the world, it's Dirge of Cerberus is a pretty cynical game, and seeing,
and that's
like, even
what's interesting about that is that, like, Crisis Core follows this optimistic person while things are kind
in
of
the
at
most
their
hopeless
worst.
world.
And then
Yes.
Dirge of Cerberus, it's like the world has been saved, and then it's like, but you still got to reckon with the fact that we're going to be following Vincent, and also Geostigma is around.
Yeah, that's so cool to me. Like, the world has been saved, things should be positive, but Vincent, like, exploring the the New World government, what's left of Shinra, like, the negativity and kind of dismay of that game, really, like, those two opposing feelings are so fascinating. They're so cool to me.
Yeah. Which is all to say that this is a Pro Nomura podcast.
Oh, for sure. I'm pretty sure that was from, like, people understood that from the get.
Yeah.
When, like, you should read the Final Fantasy VII novels. I have On the Way to a Smile in front of me right now. I recently read Trace Between Two Pasts? The Tifa and Eris novel. Yeah. And I think that I think that book is really interesting simply because it continues that balancing act of, like, the positive in the shit and the negative of the future. And I love that. Like, the story following, the upbringings of Tifa and Eris, I think that's a really sweet, heartfelt. But that final chapter really upturns everything. I don't know. Like, the themes at play here and the emotions at play, I think, are so potent. And they haven't lost potency across the many, many years of Final Fantasy VII. How old am I? 26? Yeah, 26. 26 something years of Final Fantasy VII. Like, I'm glad that they're still finding these stories to tell across this series. And, as you age with something, it's like a majority of the previous creative team still works on Final Fantasy VII in a way. Like, obviously you need to grow with it and you need to reconcile with it. And I think that's an interesting viewpoint that they seem to be going for now. Like, recognizing the achievement of that creation, of what it means to people, but specifically and more importantly, what it meant to them. At least that's what I got specifically out of Remake.
Yeah.
But God, yeah, I'm totally pro Nomura.
Yeah. And I think there's only one place to go from there in this episode.
Obviously.
Which is
Segue Queen at it again.
Me playing Crisis Core was spawned on by something else, and that was kind of a shared spirit of, like, kind of like pure, unadulterated, emotional feeling in, like, a story thematic sense. And that is, like, I guess this is like the podcast gimmick, although it's not really much of a gimmick because the whole podcast is us just talking about art. But something that we wanted to do with this show is we wanted, while we were going to just be talking about the things that we like and care about, we wanted to do something together each time. And we're kicking it off by playing through the entire Kingdom Hearts series together, which is something that I've done a ton and that Lady has done
never.
Yeah, never.
At all.
You have some experience with 3.
I do have very limited experience.
Which is fascinating because 3 is obviously 3.
3, yeah. So, I guess to preface this, the only experience I really have with Kingdom Hearts is all in connection to 3. I did not play 3. My Butch did, and my friends did at the time, and because I really wanted to have something to talk to them about, I did, I guess, sort of immerse myself in the theory crafting culture, I guess. Like I watched scenes over and over again trying to get something. I don't remember a lot. I almost feel like I was a different person back then. But what I do remember are some really specific proper nouns that while playing Final Fantasy 1, oh gosh, Kingdom Hearts 1 have been really interesting to keep in mind.
Yeah, so basically you're nearing completion on KH1.
Yes.
I've completed my playthrough. I'm crazy. I get crazy about this game. I dashed through it. I've done secret bosses. I got both versions of Another Side and Another Story because I was like, so I played that. That it's easy to do, especially because I play on Proud. Each difficulty
easy to do. Easy to do, she says.
Well, it is for me. It's easy for me to do.
Yeah. I'm playing on normal and I'm having a whale of a time.
Yeah, but it's also this is like my 5th time playing the game all the way through.
Oh yeah.
But I want because I finished this and I know everything. I want you to lead on.
So, in a way, everything that we've talked about today is accidentally curricular. Just because Kingdom Hearts envelops or embodies all of these ideas of
the conversation about like curiosity and engaging children's curiosity is like a huge like conceit with Kingdom Hearts because like it's all about like these imagined childhood worlds, and I think that's one thing where it's like the Disney stuff does still work for me because there's just this there's such a potent feeling of growing up with it where it doesn't feel like it's too nostalgia jack-offy, even though on paper and technically that is exactly what it is. But I think a strong enough thematic story has been written around it where it just works for me.
The thing about Kingdom Hearts is that it so brilliantly inspires imagination. It so brilliantly allows a player who's, you know, at the time when it came out, likely you grew up with it.
Yeah.
If you're in your 20s, if you're around 26 like I am, you probably played Kingdom Hearts or had the opportunity to play one of them. But the fact that it lets you be in this space and sort of explore this world as it is, and trusts you to mess with these systems, I think is really important. So when we talked about Hero Factory, I was thinking this would be a great lead-in into Kingdom Hearts. When we talked about Crisis Core, I was like, this would be a great lead-in into Kingdom Hearts. When we talked about Death Stranding, I was like, this would be a great... And all of these games do, in a way, sort of represent Kingdom Hearts just because it's this game that sort of interrogates the childhood need to go out and explore. And just sort of understand the world around you. And I think it's brilliant. Like, playing Kingdom Hearts 1 has been, like, genuinely exciting to me as someone that only hears about it as either a legendary game or a hawk of bullshit.
Yeah.
Because Kingdom Hearts has such a negative perception around it for some reason. But this game that I'm playing...
It's... 1, earnest. 2, the current
proper nouns.
Huh?
I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, Kingdom Hearts is so confusing."
Oh,
they get mucked and mired into the proper nouns.
It's one of those things that's like that on paper, but I think, like I alluded to earlier, it's like the pure potent emotions of it overwrite sense. And also, it does make slightly more sense. It just is a lot. There's a lot to it. Yeah. It's crazy. Crazy things happening.
There's a lot.
But I don't think to
these things.
I don't think that, like, unrestrained story is necessarily an anchor for something's quality.
No, not at all. Like, even some of the if you spend enough time saying, like, That's kind of weird. Playing Kingdom Hearts, you're never gonna enjoy
It
this
just
game. You
gets
have to have
that's a mentality that just gets so dull to me.
that's a mentality that I never understood, and I want to maintain like childhood whimsy, um, for as long as I can. I never want to be an old type, so when playing Kingdom Hearts, it's so beautiful to me that such a game exists, and is in this space between the Disney past, the Disney future, and what Sora is, um, and
And
I
also
really
like
love.
a huge uh shifting point in Square's history, because it was
Yeah,
like
because this was
Kingdom Hearts
pre.
along with Final Fantasy X is like that's the end of Squaresoft.
Mhm.
It is a big like transitional point where Squaresoft stops being what it was and becomes Square Enix and
Mhm.
becomes what it is and will be and still is today.
So there's like a lot riding on Kingdom Hearts, as this pre like merger, this pre merger game, and the kind of ideas that play are really like potent to me. It's a really beautiful game. For one, I love its art direction. It's very toyetic.
Mhm.
It's very colorful. Like
I
Sora,
knew I knew the second you booted that game up, I was like, this girl is gonna love gummy blocks.
yeah. Oh my gosh. There's so many systems that you can play around with. The gummy ship in particular, what Lila is referring to, I fell in love with almost immediately. Just because I love, I mean, if I'm being honest, it's a little complicated. Maybe too complicated.
I've always they definitely iron out some of the shit with the
I'm
gummy
sure they
customization,
do.
but the the navigation of the customizing parts in the first one is a bit much. It's a bit
They wanted to make sure that players understood it, and I do now. I totally do. I didn't. If I'm being honest, the tutorial sucked ass, but I finally understand it, and I've been really able to express myself. And you're always getting gummy ship parts.
yeah.
Like it gives you this grand toy to play with. Play with these blocks, build something beautiful, build something ugly, and it constantly inspires you to build more and more outrageous things as you play more and more of those missions. And that's sort of the ethos of that entire game, um, of playing around. It's a very playful game.
Yeah.
Like I really enjoy talking to people across that title and getting to know these worlds. And yeah, some of them are gameplay hints.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but most of the time you get these little stories, like early on when you're in Traverse Town, and to me Traverse Town instantly read as like a offshoot of on a highway kind of town.
Mhm.
Like people are here
Yeah.
not because they want to be,
It
but
basically
because they
is
are.
exactly that.
Yeah, and talking to the first lady I see, and she's like, it almost says exactly that. I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Because the meaning of Traverse Town later and why characters are there is expanded in the end of the plot. Where exactly are you in the game right now?
Oh, okay. So I'm stuck on Atlantica, simply because Ursula is, she's not a difficult boss to understand.
She's
It's
just
just
the
that
roughest.
Ursula, she's very rough. So before I get the millions and millions of comments
The
about, like,
millions of
you should be
comments.
shooting your, yeah, the millions of comments from all two listeners. Um,
Hey, we have like
they're really passionate.
we have
They're
like
super
five of
passionate.
our
They really,
friends who want to listen to our podcast, and it's fine.
it's true. But
That's who we're doing this for. Is
that's what
our
we're doing this
friends
for.
like to hear us gabber.
And Gab. Yeah, I've already shot magic into her cauldron. That sounds really bad.
Oh my god! Right, you're not even on phase two. Phase two
No,
is
I'm
the
not
one
on
people
phase
really
2.
don't like.
And I'm stuck on phase 1. So I stopped playing Atlantica and I went to Halloween Town,
Yeah.
and I'm nearing the end of Halloween Town, and then I think I have Neverland and Hollow Bastion.
Yeah,
So I think I've gotten through a bulk of the game.
you have. Yeah.
And it's really
like
spoke to
nearing
me.
the climax of it, I would say.
Yeah. I still have more to play, obviously,
Yeah.
and I still will. But that game is I'm pretty sure it's going to remain earnest. I'm pretty sure it's going to be very uh, soft and honest. Like one of the best part, I say soft, but one of the best parts for me so far is the amount of friction between like Sora and Donald, for
Mm-hmm.
example. The obviously Sora and Donald belong to such different worlds, and they both have their own understandings, and they don't necessarily want to like come to an understanding. They don't want to mesh well.
Yeah, I
Um,
think it
and that's
really kind of, because I think something you forget is that Goof.
they're not always friends.
No, well, yes, that, but also what I'm saying right now is that I think you often forget that this is also Donald and Goofy's first time traveling worlds like this, and that those walls have been placed up, and it's Sora's first time leaving the world, and so it's like it's kind of a exaggerated feeling of like culture shock, of like
Hmm.
leaving your hometown for the first time and finding out about all these different people who exist, and like having to contend with the fact that you're going to have to coexist with people who just aren't like you.
Yeah. Um, I think Sora is such a great character to explore that as someone who is, very kind, but also just a little bit hot headed. Like
And he don't know
wants to.
nothing.
He don't know nothing, and he won't for a while. And I think like obviously there's characters that are written that way so that they're better audience analogs, but he's more than an audience analog in his lack of information. He explores the world like a child because he is one. He's what 12,
He's
13,
14.
14, and I really like that. I like that he has this private world in Destiny Islands. Like obviously he goes back to a house, but that's like the first form of exploration, the first form of what is out there.
Yeah.
What else is there for me in this world?
Something I like is that like when you're given just Destiny Islands, it's this pure like playground island, and
For sure.
until you get to the point where like everything starts breaking down is the point where you go, "Oh shit. Wait, they have like a home beyond this. They have lives, they're people. They live in a
Yeah.
world. They coexist. They aren't just on like childhood island all their lives."
It's really it really spoke to me, especially with the random magic door.
Mm.
Um, because growing up, there's always that spot that you're curious about.
Yeah.
Um, uh, I was told as a child I would go on adventures a lot, which is to say explore like a outlet mall. um, and obviously I think about an outlet mall now and I'm like, man, that's boring as hell. But as a kid, all of these things have this wonderment to them. You see an employee only store and you're like, that there must be an entire magical world behind there. Maybe I'm just the dumbest little kid ever. Or I was the dumbest little kid ever, but
No,
that
I
always
think that's a
sparked
common
some kind
feeling
of
for children.
curiosity. Um, and I think Destiny Islands having that too, like really having this kind of like construction park that these kids are playing in feel
Hmm.
is really fun to me. And going through every world and kind of seeing its intention is really sweet.
Yeah.
I've appreciated that the Disney worlds haven't really gone through great lengths to just replicate Disney story. Um, like, and rather they try to focus on different feelings that these
Yeah.
things gave you. Like Wonderland is a really interesting world, and a lot of people I saw complained about Wonderland because it's designed like boxes,
Hmm.
and that spoke to me almost instantly because what it made me think of was like a dark ride.
Hmm.
Like I'm in a dark ride with the lights on. Seeing the paint on the wall, trying to explore this. It's not like they couldn't have made a world from Wonderland, because
Yeah,
Deep
but it's
Jungle is
it's
so
it's
huge and
clearly
stuff.
what they wanted from that world, because you go to, like
Yeah.
you said just now, you go to Deep Jungle and there's big skyboxes and you can move around bigger areas. But
Mhm.
Wonderland is so like
it keeps you feeling small.
Yeah.
Like, that's the point. It keeps me feeling small, and I want to feel small. Just because, like, that drives home the whole, like, growing and shrinking mechanic across that level. Like, that feeling is important across that level. And I like that these worlds explore these kinds of feelings. Like the little curiosities. One of my favorite worlds so far has been okay, let's see what I played through. Agrabah I got lost in. I know what I just said. I really got lost in Agrabah. But I still really enjoyed it just because of its verticality, and it has to make the most out of its limitations. And by limitations, what I mean is its pace. So these worlds can't take too long. They have to be this. They have to expect the player to just move on, right? So Agrabah explaining or showcasing. All right, what's this small shopping center look like? The vast desert, and then the Cave of Wonders. Like, I thought it was done really particularly well because I did get that sort of sense, that lived in feel, especially seeing Aladdin's house and seeing like the two different multiple different ways it allows you to go.
Especially the mainline titles will like kind of expand on what the worlds are and what purpose they served. But I think in that first game, it's really good at conveying a lot of space with very little.
I really, really appreciate that. That's what sort of kept me on track too. Just like especially Deep Jungle. Okay, there's about like 5 areas here that I can explore, and that's my world.
Yeah,
that's really like it helps me center
it's
myself.
Like that child.
Like I never got lost.
It's like that childhood effect, kind of for me, of like those giant wooden playgrounds that always felt endless, but were obviously a very like limited amount of like places you could be. It's like that to me.
Yeah. Like, oh, okay, Deep Jungle is the part with the tic-tac-toe. And here's the tire swing.
Yeah.
That's a great way of putting Kingdom Hearts. Like Kingdom Hearts 1 in specific. I don't know about Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories or 2 or anything.
Well, I'm excited to see how your thoughts are going to develop as the series like goes on. And for full transparency, we're going chronological release order rather than by
that
any other kind of release.
Oh, I didn't. I mean, I guess you could start with Birth by Sleep, but why on earth would you?
Yeah, that's and like I mean, starting... like with how the remasters are structured, they put days before 2. Meanwhile, we're going to be playing days after 2. And we're going to be playing days. We're not going to be watching the HD cutscenes of days.
Yeah, you're totally right. I didn't think about it that way. I mean, I don't know. I think... that's bizarre.
Well, I think the purpose of it is to properly set up for 2. And so it's like 1.5 gets...
stuff in the organization.
It's like 1, and then you get Chain of Memories, and then you get Days, and then you can play 2. But we're doing release order, so that's just... I wanted to say that.
That's so weird. Huh. Shit, I completely lost my train of thought just because I didn't think people played these things in such a radical different release order. Radical different order.
Yeah.
But I think one of my greatest regrets about Kingdom Hearts so far, and it's nothing in my control either, which is what's more frustrating, is that I didn't get to grow up with these games. I tried. I'll be honest with you, I tried. I had a PS2 when I grew up. My first game was Ratchet and Clank, Up Your Arsenal, and my dad got me a copy of Kingdom Hearts. And I was like, 3 at the time? And I got scared at the opening, like the very opening, not Destiny Island.
The Dive to a Heart is what it's called.
Dive to a Heart.
The Heart. I think Dive to the Heart.
The place with the stained glass.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Stained glass platforms, giant heart. To be fair, it's like that is scary. It's like not like horrifying to me, but it is like weird shit happens. You get
There's a
asked
difference
like
between
existential questions and shit.
there's a difference between a child at 3 feeling fear though and a child at like 6
Yeah.
feeling fear. So I don't know what happened to that copy. I didn't end up playing it. Kind of sad. But if I had grown up with this series, I I I wonder how that feels because I'm playing these games at 26.
Yeah.
Right. This is like the third time I've brought up my age. Um, but I know that 3 has Sora as like an older teenager.
Mhm.
Almost what? How old is he? It
He
doesn't matter.
ages
Like
once
almost
per
an
main
adult.
title. So he's 14 in the first one, 15 in the second one, and 16 in the third one.
Wow, he's so tall for 16.
Well, I mean, that's how
Anyway,
puberty happens.
I guess that's true. So like being able to see that across these multiple years, actually it's kind of weird because Sora was 16 when a lot of people, because 3 came out a long time anyway.
Yeah.
Being able to grow up with it, I feel like would be really interesting. My Chris, my Butch, was able to grow up with them and talks very fondly about that experience.
Yeah,
I
I had
because it's a series that grows up
yeah.
with you. At least that's my impression.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I have a weird experience with it because I didn't get to do it linearly.
Mm-hmm.
It was my first exposure to Kingdom Hearts was my childhood friend had a copy, and so I would do sleepovers over at her house, and I would like just pop in like a finished save of 2 and just like
Mm-hmm.
read the journals. I was like fascinated by like these characters I didn't recognize, and eventually I was able to play her copy of 2, without ever playing the first one, and it was the first game I ever cried to, and that was like a
Really?
big emotional moment. And so eventually I went backwards and I went forward. I didn't have a PS2 until fuck, I think like 2013. I
Mm-hmm.
bought my first PlayStation 2 at a GameStop for $40, and it was like the most exciting thing to me because like I'd spent the entire 2000s growing up on gaming magazines wanting a PlayStation 2 but never being able to afford a PlayStation 2. Um and so to be able to kind of just like unlock this library for so cheap and like finally enter this world I've always wanted to. And obviously some of the first games I bought for it were Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And I played them to completion. So it's like it was always this thing that like was in and out, you know. I would always dip in and dip back out of order, and then I was finally able to kind of like put the pieces together once I was at an age where I was like, by the time I did that, I was like, I was Sora's age. So it's like I caught up to him in a way.
That's really cool. Oh,
Yeah, that's why it's always been kind
the
of
age
special for me.
age is in a way like is sort of an important part of these games.
Mhm.
Just like obviously there are lessons that I can learn playing these games now even though I haven't grown up with them. Like Sora isn't necessarily aspirational. He's more like I see him more as like a mirror to how I felt then.
Mhm.
And being able to connect with that inner child element, I think has been like a really cool part of Kingdom Hearts to me. Because there's a lot of things that it inspires within me. Specifically, I appreciate that it it has the cojones to do the things that it does.
Uh-huh.
It's such an out there premise that like I can totally understand people bouncing off of it, getting filtered by it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I guess that's just how some people feel, but for me, whenever it's like I hear dearly beloved and I'm just like, I'm
oh,
in.
oh
I'm
man,
in. I don't care what you do.
yeah.
I don't care what time travel bullshit you do. I don't care who is half Xehanort of who. I'm fucking in.
It's gonna be interesting to go through this series,
Yeah.
like as a full thing, simply because like I know where it leaves off.
Yeah.
I
And
was gonna say
I
ends, but
figure uh our discussion of it next time is going to be a lot more plot orientated because you'll have gotten to like a lot of plot happens in the back half of that game.
Yeah,
And
there hasn't
so
been too much plot.
yeah,
Like,
you kind of
there
you get
hasn't
these
been.
feelings and you meet Riku here and there. You get the setup.
You meet Riku here and there. You see that the villains are plotting against you, but it's not like I know who Xemnas is yet.
Yeah. And
Um,
so you're going to get a lot of plot in the next go of things.
that's that's kind of exciting for me because obviously a lot of my feelings are based on, oh well, I'm not mucked and mired by the proper nouns
Yeah.
yet. But because I remember liking 3. I remember enjoying my time exploring what Kingdom Hearts had to offer then, kind of digging into uh it's more remote stories, like the stuff in the mobile games. I
Uh-huh.
know people say it's important, but mobile games
I
are
can't
such a thing.
I can't. I don't like using the
I can't
phone.
abide.
I'm not a phone girl.
I use my phone, like most people. I just the idea of playing a story heavy title on a phone, on a telephone, sounds miserable to me. And I
Yeah.
say this as someone that loves handhelds. Um, like if if I had to play an entire Kingdom Hearts mobile title, um, just to get like important plot information or more uh, elucidation rather, on like, oh, what were Xehanort's feelings, etc., or like
Yeah.
what were
I've
the this what were they called, what's the BBS trio called?
Oh
um
fuck. I
it's like the Wayfinder trio,
Something like that. I
something like
technical
that.
terms not always my forte. Um I'm very
What was
emotions
the world
based
like?
rather than like, oh, I can on paper just like tell you every
What was the
term.
world like with them? Or what was I don't know,
Yeah,
this that and the other.
I would say the I'm really excited for you to get to Days. I'm really excited for you to get to Birth by Sleep. For full transparency, I guess, Birth by Sleep is the one that I consider to be my favorite.
Interesting. I did not know this.
Yeah.
I thought it was 2.
No, I mean, gameplay wise, I think 2 is the best. I think that's a common opinion. But in terms of like a whole package, a whole story, what I seek from a game, uh, Birth by Sleep is it for me.
Fascinating. Oh, I can't wait, especially because it's on the PSP, and I can't. Well, am I playing that on the PSP or am I playing the? Well, I'll figure that out later.
Yeah,
That's for future lady to
yeah,
decide.
we don't need to worry about it for now. But
For a while.
yeah, I guess that's a good place to wrap up. We're an hour and
Um.
42 minutes into this recording,
Yeah.
and
I guess
yeah,
I'm excited for what Kingdom Hearts has left, or has Kingdom Hearts 1 has left to show me,
yeah.
because I really, really loved
I'm
it so
excited to go
far.
on this journey with you, and I'm excited to see what other things we talk about and do. And I hope,
Stuff.
yeah,
I hope you enjoyed
yeah,
listening.
I do
Oh
too.
man.
I hope you
Sorry, I'm
have a
thinking about
nice
Kingdom
day.
Hearts now. Have a nice day. Do we have any socials that we need to plug?
Oh fuck! I mean, I'm kissing citrus on Blue Sky. Uh, that's where I post
Oh,
the
that
most.
is what you're.
Yeah,
I,
I
I'm gonna be honest.
have.
I've always misread your username as Kissing Critics.
Huh? I don't do that.
No, no, you don't.
Uh,
Um,
yeah,
do we should probably make a new shape, Blue Sky or
yeah, or something.
Twitter,
I'm gonna. I
Tumblr.
figure we'll set up an email in the future. Right now, it's just like I'm not going into this with anything other than just we're going to be talking about art and having fun because
It would be cool to have a Tumblr that we just use to reblog like screenshots from the things that we play.
yeah.
Yeah.
But we can figure all
Oh,
that
that would be.
later off the air.
We can fit. Well, yeah,
I'm kissing
obviously.
citrus
Um.
on Blue Sky. Like I said, I have a Twitter technically. It's Luciferin, Luciferin, but the U is an underscore. I only post my artistic projects on there. Lady.
Uh. uh, I'm Steptalus, Steppetalus, on both Twitter, and the other one, Blue Sky. If you really want to follow me, I post whatever bullshit that I like. So I mean,
Yeah. We're not
you don't have to
we're not
do
the craziest
U-shape
posters.
homework.
We're not the craziest posters.
Not at all.
We
But
honestly
yeah,
mostly
this
just
has
like
been...
to chatter like this. And so that's why we're kind of just like we're gonna chatter.
That's why we came up with we should record a podcast.
Yeah, I mean people when people invite us into calls, they just go, "Do you want to do podcast for us?" And so we were like, "Fuck it. Let's just make an actual podcast for them."
Yeah, why not? Oh man.
And so yeah, I don't know. This has been New Shape. I hope if you are our friend and you know us, you had a good time. I hope if you don't know us, you also had a good time.
Please rate us 5 stars on Yelp. We hope the food was good. If it wasn't, tough shit. But yeah, this has been...
Bye. See you next time.